Alright, so I'm going to show you guys how to make yogurt and kefir. And this is something that I've been making myself for probably like 3 years now. And there's a bunch of different ways to make it. There's a lot of different techniques that I saw online that people use. So I'm just going to show you guys kind of how I make it and what works for me. And if you find out a different way works for you, that's totally fine. I've seen people use yogurt makers, I've seen people use crock pots, all sorts of different ways. I haven't had too much success with the crock pot method, but if you don't have the money to buy a yogurt maker, which is really just like a heating pad, just keeps it warm at about like 100, 110 degrees. Feel free to be creative. There's a lot of creative ways to do it. So I love yogurt. I love making yogurt. It tastes great. It's good for a meal on the go a lot of times. So there's a lot of different things that you can actually make yogurt out of. I use 2 different types of milk. I use cow's milk and I actually use goat's milk. And for both of them, I use raw because to me, my personal experience and research into it, raw is just loaded with more beneficial enzymes and bacteria, so you get a better product. There's still a lot of controversy whether raw is safe. I've been drinking raw for 2 years and I haven't had anything happen to me. But I also know my source of where it's coming from. I know my farmers of who I'm getting it from, and they test on a regular basis. So actually in Ohio, raw milk is illegal, but there are some ways around it. They have what's called herd shares. So you purchase a herd share and then you're able to purchase, or actually part of that herd share is you get some of the milk that you purchased in the herd share. So it's like a contract, so it's a way around it if you are interested in raw milk. You can use conventional milk. I recommend obviously using the highest quality. Try to look for organic, non-homogenized milk. That way you're just getting the best product, because I feel like if you're going to spend time to make your own, you might as well make it good quality. But again, if you don't have access to raw milk, then good organic conventional milk is good. But we do have a lot of resources. I actually printed off some material in the back that we have access to some local farmers here, where you can get a whole host of things. Cow's milk, I printed off some information where you can get yak's milk, camel's milk, sheep's milk, if you're interested in those types of things. So another thing too, another benefit of using the raw milk is a lot of people are lactose intolerant. But I've found that I had a roommate who was lactose intolerant, but he could drink raw milk and have no reaction. So his body wouldn't react negatively to the raw milk. So do your own research, come to your own judgment, do what you feel comfortable with. So I'm just going to show you again what I pretty much do. So yogurt making can be pretty intimidating at first until you see how simple it is. And in the beginning, you'll probably mess up. It's going to happen because you're fermenting something. So until you get used to the process, it may not turn out 100% like you like it. But then once you get it to that right consistency, you just feel so accomplished because it took you a couple times to troubleshoot it. So I know personally it took me a couple times, like sometimes it either would be too thick or it wouldn't thicken up enough or it'd be too sour. Then when I finally figured it out, it's easy to produce that same consistency. So the first step you need your milk. So I got my raw milk right here, and then you also need a starter. So these enzymes and bacteria are not naturally found in milk, but how actually found in milk, but then, so then how did yogurt come about? So yogurt came about actually when people would travel with milk and they would store it in the lining of the gut of different animals where the enzymes were. And then when they get there, they'd find that they had milk. So you're introducing these cultures into your milk to produce a product. So these cultures are going to eat up the sugars within the milk and actually multiply. So instead of buying a probiotic capsule or something, you have live probiotics right here in the living food. So what you're going to do first is you're going to make what's called as the Pure Mother. So this is going to be your yogurt starter that you're going to use throughout when you make more batches of yogurt. So for the first batch though, you're going to need a starter which can be purchased online. There's a couple different websites. A website that I really like is Cultures for Health. That's a really good website. They have a bunch of different heirloom strains of bacteria. And then where did you get this one?
That one, so I'm lactose intolerant, so I get mine online and I use a non-lactose starter. So that's what that one is. I forget whatever the label is called. There's so you can get them on Amazon. I know Bassett's and Claudia's, Carrie's. They only have one brand that you can use, but they're really successful ones too.
Yeah. So there's multiple different places to get your starter. But so then one thing that you want to look at with your starter is you want to look at, is it thermophilic or mesophilic? So thermophilic means heat loving. So what's going to cause the reaction in here is the heat. So mesophilic is more of a neutral, so at like a room temperature where it's going to react. So you want to make sure that they're typically thermophilic. Most of the yogurts that you're going to buy in the store are going to be thermophilic. So if you don't purchase a starter and you want to purchase something at the store, you can actually purchase yogurt from the store and use that as your starter to inoculate the milk. But you got to look at the label and make sure it says active cultures on it. So if it doesn't say active cultures in it, then it's not going to culture your milk. So if that's easy or convenient for you, just make sure it says the active cultures. So what you would typically do first with to make your Pure Mother culture is you would take your milk, you would slowly heat it to between 160 to 180 degrees. And you want to do this slowly because milk will burn really easy. So there's going to be bacteria in there that competes together. So you want to start with a clean slate. So by heating it up, whether it's raw or pasteurized, you basically start from zero. Then once you heat it up, you can use anything like a candy thermometer just to measure the temperature. Then after it gets between that degrees, 160, 180, then you want to cool it to about 110. And then at that point, you just add your starter. And then for me, I would add my starter, mix it up, and I would put it in a jar like this. And then I would basically just place it in my yogurt maker for about 8 to 12 hours. And then you want to just check it, and then you want to look at the consistency because it should look like it's starting to become a little bit more solid, but you don't want to see it to start separating because then you have the whey separating from it, and that means you went a little bit too long. So at that point, so then I have my Pure Mother culture here. So this is actually my Pure Mother culture. So then at this point, instead of using the starter right here to make your yogurt, you're going to use this each time. So basically, you only had to purchase this once, and then you keep it going right here.
But you can just, so you know, like let's say your Pure Mother doesn't turn out or something happens, you can use the starter. Or like
Right.
if you don't want to use the Pure Mother is like ideal for the bacteria and reproduction and all that stuff. But if you have the starter and that's how you want to do it and that's like better for you time-wise and stuff, like as long as you have it, you can use that too.
Yeah. But once you have this, you don't have to purchase the starter again. So I recommend getting used to making the Pure Mother because it's just going to save you money in the long run.
And then there's like the Pure Mother, something that lives for a long time, you just like kind of keep it and take from it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you just make
Yep. So now that I have my Pure Mother, I'm gonna make my yogurt from this. So again, I would take my milk, and at this point, if you use conventional milk, you would do the same process where you would heat it up because you would want to inoculate that down. But with raw milk, you don't have to. You can basically take it, pour it in your bowl, and then add your Pure Mother to it, and then throw it into your dehydrator. You can throw it into your yogurt maker. These are two different types of yogurt makers right here, pretty much the same thing. These just have like smaller jars. I like this one because it's a bigger jar. And then from there, you just let it go again for 8 to 12 hours. There are certain diets though that recommend you to do it for 24 hours if you're more lactose intolerant, to eat up all the lactose. But once you have this, you don't have to heat it up again if you're using raw milk. And then what you would do is when you run low on this, you would repeat the same process where you would, whether it's raw or conventional, heat it up again, and then add this to the milk that you heated up and then cooled, and then you have your Pure Mother culture again. So that's something to keep it going again, to save money from having to constantly buy the bacteria, but it's not a bad thing if you have to buy it based on time constraints though too. So if you are using the starter, you'll probably, do they need to heat it up each time then, if they're using the starter?
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah. So ideally, if you do use a starter, you will need to heat it up each time to about 160, 180, and then let it cool. So this, I just started doing it with the Pure Mother just to save myself a little money
And some time.
and some time. So I'm still kind of fine tuning it, how it works. So basically, so we'll do this demo real quick. So I'm gonna pour in my milk.
That's just straight up milk, you gotta do it.
Straight up milk.
Yeah,
It's
it's
still
frozen.
I froze this to save the life of it. So what you will notice though too is if you do buy raw milk, typically lasts, the real sweetness really lasts about a week. So what you can do is you can freeze them and then take a little bit out each time, and that way it lasts a lot longer. So mine is still pretty frozen because I saved it. So then what you're gonna do is, the ratio is about 1 teaspoon to 1 cup of milk. And the ratio will change a little bit depending on, so like for example, if you buy raw milk, at the beginning, there's gonna be more sugar in it. So the ratio is usually true, but if you wait till like the end of the week, there might not be as much, so you might have to kind of judge whether you need a little bit more or a little bit less depending on how you like the flavor. So there's about 4 cups in here, right?
Sure. Yes, I think so.
So I'm just gonna add 4 teaspoons.
So a teaspoon per cup.
Yep.
Okay.
And nothing's perfect. I mean, you can tailor it how you want, and then you just mix it up. And since this is frozen, I would actually want this to thaw a little bit more. Then just mix it up, and then you would cover it, and you could either put it in a dehydrator, or then I would put it in this jar here, put it in here, and then let it go for 8 to 12 hours, and you have yogurt. It's pretty simple. So then there's that, and then kefir. Kefir is also very simple. So if you don't have any equipment, you don't need any equipment for the kefir, which is very nice. So
Does everybody know what kefir is? Okay, why don't you tell them?
what kefir is?
Yes.
So so yogurt is basically bacteria, and then kefir is going to be yeast and bacteria. So kefir is going to have a bit more strains of bacteria, and it's going to taste a little bit more sour. What else would you say about it?
Yeah,
That's
it's,
about it.
and it's not quite as like thick, like the way that it ferments. It kind of has maybe thicker consistency than milk, but not much. But it's really great for probiotics. It definitely has a more like sour kind of taste. So I know some people that love it, and some people that like can't even stand to like be near it.
And I've heard that kefir is actually better if you have candida infections because it will actually fight more candida infections than the yogurt. The yogurt, because it doesn't have any beneficial yeast, since candida is a yeast, with the kefir you have the beneficial yeast, so that will fight any kind of yeast infection that you will have. So it's really, really good with anything, like how Erica said she likes to keep diversity within Madeline's diet. It's also good to keep diversity in what you're consuming in the fermented foods that you're consuming. So I like to switch it up between the kefir and the yogurt, just to keep the diversity of good bacteria, bad bacteria at a neutral zone, and then also with the yeast as well. But it does take a little bit getting used to the flavor because it is a bit stronger. But there's a lot of different things you can do with kefir. So just like if you have a hard time transitioning to flavor, you can add a little bit of honey. You can blend up some fruit in there. You can add a banana to it, and it really, if it's a little too strong for you, it really helps curb that taste. So it's something, again, that I like to drink in the morning. So basically, kefir's no brainer. So instead of using a starter culture or a pure mother, so with kefir, you actually use what's called is kefir grains. And kefir grains you can typically get from your local farmer if they sell milk. I'm gonna have a registration in back if you guys want to get some starter for the yogurt. Just sign up, and then I'll prepare a bunch of starter for the yogurt, and then I'll also prepare some kefir grains if you guys are interested in that too, because once you start making this, the kefir grains multiply like crazy. Like you're gonna have more kefir grains than you know what to do with. So you might just start giving them away yourself too. So that's the beauty of these of the kefir grains, is once you have them once, the only way you won't gonna have them again is if you kill them all. And they're pretty hard to kill. There are a few things that you need to know about kefir grains. They are sensitive to metals. So if you don't want to have them come in contact with metals because it will weaken them. So you want to use like wood or plastic.
Okay.
So that's the safest. So the ratio again for the kefir is about the same. So you're going to use about 1 teaspoon. 1 teaspoon per cup of milk. So I'm just going to pour this milk in here. So again, with raw milk, you don't have to heat it. But again, mine's frozen. I should have left it out a little longer because you want it to get to at least room temperature. And then I'm just going to take my kefir grains. And kefir grains look kind of weird. Like they look like little pieces of cauliflower. You can eat them too. You can eat these things if you want. You can feed them to your dogs. But they look kind of weird, and people really don't know where they come from. So I'm going to put some in here.
Did you say 1 teaspoon to 1 cup?
Yes. And again, you can play around with those measurements too. It doesn't have to be perfect. So then you just place them in there, and then I would put a cap on here, and then you want to find a pretty decent warm spot in your house. Like the kefir grains culture best between, let me see, what was it? I think it was between like 75, 80 degrees. So if you keep your house cool, if you have a light above your stove, that will help, or even in a cupboard above the fridge. So you want to keep it at that temperature so it ferments nicely, and this usually takes overnight, again, 8 to 12 hours. And then you can check it to see if it's starting to congeal together and create a nice consistency. But then again, if you start to see the separation, you went too long. So once you have your final kefir product, you're going to want to strain the grains out. So get like a plastic strainer with decent sized holes. I mean, these aren't the biggest holes. And then you would just basically place it over your jar, and then you would pour it and kind of like mix it around a little bit, and then your kefir grains would stay. And then you would want to either start your batch again, or you could save your kefir grains. So you don't want to save them though in tap water, because the chlorine and the fluoride will kill them. So just save them in a little bit of kefir actually, just to kind of keep them going. So I'm sorry, I have to repeat the timing. It's actually 24 hours for the kefir. And then for your first batch, they usually say when you first get the kefir grains, even sometimes 48 hours to activate them. So once they're activated though, so once you do your first batch, your second batch you should be able to only have to wait about 24 hours. So trying to think if I have anything else. So yeah, then again, you're going to have copious amounts of kefir grains at that point, and you can look online for different uses for them. Again, you can consume them yourself. If you have pets, you can put it in their food. I feed it to my dogs. They actually love it. Or you can actually put it on your plants. So or give it to a friend for a birthday that's coming up. So there's a lot of uses for these things. So again, this is really, really sustainable. Again, if you're going to use conventional organic milk, you would heat it up and then let it cool to inoculate the milk. But with raw milk, you wouldn't have to do that. You just put it in a warm spot, wait the 24 to 48 hours, just check it, and then after that, throw it in the fridge, and then strain out your grains. And that's pretty much it. And there's a lot of different things that you can make from kefir. There's something that I haven't made yet, but I want to make. It's a kefir cheese. So you can make that. That's like another easy step to make. So basically where you would take your kefir, you take your finished kefir product, and you would take a larger glass jar, and you would take like a nut milk bag, pour it in there, and then you would take like a wooden spoon or a plastic spoon or something, and then wrap it around, and then you would want to elevate it above the bottom of the jar, and then you just put it in the fridge overnight. And what that would do, that would actually allow the whey to drain out, and then it would cause another fermentation process, and at the end you'd have cheese. I myself haven't done it yet. I don't know what it tastes like, but I hear it's pretty good. There's a lot of different things. So there's a lot of different ways. Again, the internet, beautiful resource. If you find that this method doesn't work, try and research and see what kind of other methods that people are using, and see what kind of other things that people are adding to it as well. So yeah, it's pretty easy. So if you guys are interested in some kefir grains, some yogurt starters, just let me know. I'll get you guys some as soon as possible, because I'm going to have too much. Yeah?
I just want to add one more thing. He was talking about yogurt, and he said, like, at first you might kind of screw up. I think the biggest thing to remember, I mean, I've been making yogurt for probably like 7 years now, but the first year, it's so intimidating, and when he says mess up, he means like consistency or the flavor. You really can't, it doesn't really go bad. That was my biggest fear, is like, oh my gosh, you have bacteria in here, and like if you mess up, then like, I'm gonna poison myself, or like give myself botulism or something. And that's really not, that doesn't happen. Like
Yeah.
I've never had an incident where I've actually made it go bad to the point where you can't eat it. So like, yes, it might be a little sour, or the consistency might be off, but it's almost always still safe to consume. And that's the biggest thing, is like, you'll get the hang of it, and the first couple times you might be kind of weary of yourself, but that's what I love so much about making it, is that like, you'll read online too, like no one really ever has problems where like it has caused, for it to go bad. So just remember, like if you ever start making your own, to be kind of confident in yourself, because it's really hard to mess up.
And the more you make it, the more confident you'll get. One thing that I saw that a lady does to kind of ensure consistency with the texture is, she says with the raw milk you can actually heat it up to between like 100, 110, and she said that will guarantee you a similar consistency. So if you have time to do that, or if you just don't have time and you just want to throw it in, if you have the raw milk, then you can do that too. So there's a lot of different tricks out there. Me even making it over the past couple years and then researching again this week, I learned a bunch of new stuff because everyone just uses a few different techniques. So again, there's so many different types of milks that you can use, because I like to keep a diversity not only of the probiotics but the milks that I use. So again, I'll use goat's milk, I'll use cow's milk. We want to try yak's milk here in the next couple weeks. I know that sounds weird to some people, but
What about breast milk?
I've heard of people doing that.
I don't mean for me, I mean for the baby. Like, what?
yeah.
How?
Well, even for you, it's not going
Yeah.
to be,
Whatever.
it's not going to be bad.
Yeah, milk.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
milk.
I mean-
Milk is milk.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
The
I think that it would work.
I think
I've
that
heard
would
of
do it.
people.
Yeah.
I've never tried it obviously, but
yeah.
'Cause, like,
I think it would be pretty
well, I've done a lot of research on bacteria in your gut. And I think probably most of us in America have eaten like the standard American diet that sort of kills some of the good bacteria. So one of the ways to get it back into your diet is to make your own yogurt, which I've been doing. But I'm thinking about my baby, and I'm like, how do I help her get the good bacteria? Because it won't be necessarily in my milk if it's not in my body. So
Right.
if I could make yogurt with my milk, at 6 months she starts getting the good bacteria, and maybe she doesn't have the health issues that I've had.
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard
Right?
of
Like, I'm
that,
getting
but
chills right now, like
Yeah.
hoping
Yeah.
something good for her.
I'm sure you could definitely do something like that as long as you're comfortable. I know it's like a weird concept for
Whatever.
people
Well, like,
to
I
think
supplement
about
with,
now.
I give her probiotics already
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
breast
see,
milk,
that's
so
like-
if you're already giving her probiotics, this is,
I just figured it'd be a good way for her to get it.
Yeah, it's why not?
It's gotta be a good choice.
Yeah, and do it. I'm sure someone has done it.
I'm sure
Yeah.
someone's
Yeah.
done it.
Online and
Yeah.
see.
Just check online and see
I
if
know,
anyone's
right?
done it. But I imagine the same principles
Yeah, that's
would
what I was
apply
thinking.
to, since it's probably raw
It's
again.
raw, right?
Breast
It's
milk.
Yeah.
raw organic.
Yeah.
And it's
You
going to
can
have all
probably
of
do
the
it, so.
sugars and everything else in there, so
Yeah.
it's going.
You might want to just make sure you label it so someone's not going through your fridge and then
Yeah.
yogurt and by mistake. I'm sure it wouldn't hurt them or anything,
No.
but yeah, that's I've never thought about that myself. I'm sure you
I
can do
bet
it.
you would.
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
right? It's a thing, yeah. Thank you.
So I actually brought, so I did not only want to talk about it, but I actually brought some
Ooh, today's.
yogurt for you guys to taste. We tried to make it yesterday, but we lost some power
Yeah, we
midway
lost
through the
electricity
day.
for a little while.
So one of them didn't turn out totally right.
It tastes fine. It
It's-
just doesn't have the consistency. And the one that didn't turn out is the goat milk one. But feel free to try it. But it typically has a much thicker consistency.
Yeah, so we got the cow's milk. So when you make it with cow's milk is going to produce a thicker yogurt because it's creamier. Goat's milk is naturally homogenized, so it should normally be thicker than what we have it today.
Can you explain what that means?
Yeah.
Homogenized?
Homogenized is basically where you like shatter all the fat molecules to make it look cloudy. So naturally milk, the cream should separate at the top, but when they homogenize it, they shatter all those fat molecules, so it just looks like creamy through without. So that's what they do to it. So you don't got the natural creaminess in there.
Because
So this
people
is
think
nat-
it's gross to shake up your milk,
Yeah.
apparently.
So this is, so goat's milk's a little bit more, the fat consistency is not as thick. So it's not gonna be as thick as your cow's milk, but it still has a really, really nice clean taste. I know a lot of people, before I actually tried goat's milk, people were like, oh, it has such a gross aftertaste. But that's if you buy the store-bought stuff, because when you pasteurize it, it totally changes the taste. Because when I got into a goat share and I tried it, and I was like kind of scared when I was drinking it, because I like didn't want to make a bad face in front of the lady. So I drank it and I was like, wow, that's like surprisingly clean tasting. So for me, I feel like the goat's milk actually tastes cleaner than cow's milk. So my taste buds have kind of changed too. And you'll notice that it doesn't taste like the conventional yogurt, but you'll notice when you start making your own, your taste buds will change. And after a while, you'll prefer your own yogurt compared to the store-bought yogurt.
Yeah.
It's just, you just feel different. It just like sits different in your stomach. And you just, on a cellular level, you just feel different. Your taste buds just can't take it. So we got some stuff if you guys are interested. We got the cow, we got the goat. If you guys are interested in trying some just to see how it tastes, so.
Can I bring up like a concern that I have with starting to make my own is
Sure.
how long does it last? Like I'm always like, oh, it's gonna go bad. And then
It lasts a long time. Once you make it, you have probably 2 to 3 weeks to consume it. I mean, it doesn't last necessarily as long as like some store-bought ones will say, but I've probably even eaten it after 3 weeks, but I wouldn't go longer than a month.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
Is that how long the mother culture lasts as well?
The mother culture will last even longer, just because the way that it's heated and then the amount of like probiotics and enzymes that it has in it. But as far, I don't know, I go through mine so fast, so
Yeah.
I know people that have kept the mother for several months, and have no issues.
Yeah. So the mother will last a long time, but once you really get into the rhythm of doing this, you're going to be making it all the time because you'll be surprised at how fast you'll start consuming it. Like Megan and I will consume this in like a week.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you'll go through it pretty fast. You'll be surprised. So you'll go through this stuff fast. And again, with making it, the biggest thing is just your time management. Just pick a day of the week, especially until you feel comfortable with the process, to where you can have a couple hours to do this. And like Erica said, when she does it, it takes her 90 minutes. In the beginning, it definitely did not take her 90 minutes because she's multitasking it. And myself too, making this stuff, it's weird because I never cooked before. Like, it takes time. So once you do this stuff, it just like anything, the more you do it, repetition, the more it becomes automatic, and you just like develop a sense for how much you need to add based upon the sweetness of how it tastes, how long you need to ferment it. So with these principles, you'll be able to kind of make changes based upon your own schedule. So I try to pick 1 day a week to do these kinds of things, or if I can't make it every week, every other week. So just do what you can. If you can only make it once a month, make it once a month. Every other week, make it every other week. If you have more time, that's great. But again,
one of the great things too is like when you're heating it up, like yes, you want to pay attention, but like you don't have to be standing over it. Like just maybe I set a timer for every like 15 minutes and like go over, check my thermometer. Oh, okay, we're good. Same as cooling it down. Cooling it down, I'll set a timer for 30 minutes so I can go do something else and come back when it beeps and you check your thermometer to see. So really, like you have to be home. You have to be like in your house to make sure it doesn't like get too hot or too cold. But really, this process doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
Putting it in the yogurt, piece of cake. But
I do laundry, watch TV, fold clothes.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say with when I started making it, that I found that I really needed to stir it to check the temperature.
Yeah.
Because it sort of gets like hot spots, and I have an electric like
Yeah.
ovens. That might be why.
Yeah.
But I definitely have to stir it when I check it. But.
And again, when you heat it, you want to heat it slow. So how long would you say? Maybe like an hour or two to heat it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it on like the lowest
Yeah.
settings. I know some people go to like 2 or 3 to make it faster, but I try to go as slow as possible. So then I check it every like 20 minutes while it's heating up, and it takes about an hour.
So when you heat it, the initial step between the 160 to 180, it will take a couple hours, and then it takes about an hour to cool, would you say?
Yeah, yeah.
Then you just set a timer for an hour, let it cool, and then at that point, you just add your bacteria and then put it in your yogurt maker. And the biggest thing is just try not to forget about it.
Yeah.
I set a timer.
A lot of
like,
times,
Yeah.
a lot of times, if depending on your schedule, I'll be like, oh, I'll wake up in the morning and leave, and then I'll be like, oh no, like I forgot the yogurt in the maker. So until you get used to incorporating these things in your life, you'll forget about it. Like it will not be in your mind unless you put like a note of when you started it. You'll forget what time you even started it. You'll be like, no, what time did I start that? Like.
Sticky note on the
So,
yogurt maker.
yeah, put a sticky note, like start, like put in fridge at this time or little things like that really help because again, everyone's life's so busy, things happen and you'll forget and then you'll be bummed out that your yogurt didn't turn out. So yeah, so we got some yogurt for you guys to try if you guys want to try some and that's pretty much it.